Hey everybody, what is going on? It is Thursday. How are we doing? Thanks for coming and hanging out with me today on this, a Thursday. It is definitely one of those that is it's the most Thurs of all the days this week. That's true. That's 100% true. How y'all doing? It's lovely to see you. I'm here on this Thursest of days, and I am ready to talk about a new monster. That's right. We're back with the Monster Redesign stream. This stream is a partner with a podcast that I produce called Monster of the Week, which you can find out more information about above me currently. Let me check my framing here. I'm always a little worried with this one that I'm like too far. No, I'm good. I'm like right in the middle. Perfect. Good framing. Yeah, you can check that show out. What we do every week on that show is that we pick one monster in the monster manual and we dissect it. We talk about its history, we talk about its lore, we talk about its mechanics, both in this edition and previous editions. We talk about improvements that we would theoretically make to the monster if we were given a chance. Well, guess what, folks? This stream is that chance. We are going to take one of the monsters from the monster manual and we are going to redesign it right here, live, in front of all of you people who are watching it, which are not very many, but that's okay. What's going on with y'all? Talk to me about your weeks. How Thurs has your day been? That's my main question. But while you do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the monster that we're going to be covering today. We're covering what I think is like kind of the sleeper iconic monster of Dungeons and Dragons. Now, is that an oxymoron? Kind of, because how could it be iconic if it's sleeper, if it's asleep, if it's kind of under the radar? How could it be iconic? But I think the Death Knight is a kind of a monster that I always sort of wanted to exist as a younger D&D player, but didn't realize that it did exist. For some reason, it just kind of like passed over me. I'm not sure exactly why. But the concept of a high-level undead commander was super, super interesting to me. This is kind of the paladin equivalent of the Lich, which is sort of like a powerful undead wizard. It's the Shadowrunner says, thought it was still Wednesday. That's how busy it's been. Yikes. That sounds like a pretty Thurs. Well, I would say it's more of like a Wednes, than a Thurs. That's what I would say. But the Death Knight is sort of the high-level undead paladin to the Lich's high-level undead wizard, or the cleric's undead high-level, or the mummy lord's undead high-level cleric. So we're going to talk about what this monster is, and then how we're gonna fix it. But if you're not aware of the Death Knight, like I was, for some reason it slipped past me until about 4th edition when I first really encountered it, even though it was in the game long before that, as we discuss on the podcast. The Death Knight in 5th edition is a medium undead. It's chaotic evil. It's got AC 20, it has plate armor and a shield, 180 hit points, 30-foot speed, 20 strength, 11 dexterity, 20 con. So it's got high strength, high con, average dex and int, and then, middling, like anyone else would describe that as high, I guess, high wisdom and charisma. It's got good saving throws, particularly its wisdom and charisma saving throws. It is immune to necrotic and poison. It is also immune to exhaustion, frightened, and poisoned. It's got a 120-foot dark vision, a passive perception of 13, speaks Abyssal and Common, and it's a CR 17 monster. Shadowrunner says, Broken Oath, Unrepentant Paladin. Yes, indeed. It's kind of like I think I knew about like the Blackguard in 3rd edition, or the Blackguard, but I was not aware of the Death Knight as a concept. Probably it was a template. Yes, it was a template as far as I remember, and they love those templates in 3.5. For abilities, the Death Knight has magic resistance, which gives it advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects, and it also has Martial Undead, that reads, unless the Death Knight is incapacitated, it and undead creatures of its choice within 60 feet of it have advantage on saving throws against features that turn undead. It is also a spellcaster, a 19th level spellcaster. Oops, I copied this over. There's some gaps here. The Death Knight has the following question mark spells prepared. First level, it's got a command, compel duel, searing smite. It's got hold person and magic weapon at 2nd level. At 3rd level, it's got dispel magic and elemental weapon. At 4th level, it's got banishment and staggering smite. And at 5th level, it has Destructive Wave, but only with necrotic damage. Now, for its actions, it's got multi-attack. It can attack 3 times with its longsword, which is plus 11. It deals 1d8 plus 5 slashing damage, or 1d10 plus 5 slashing damage if it was used in 2 hands. Who cares? Which it probably isn't, because it's wielding a shield, so that feels like a waste of time. But I'm already getting into critiques. Plus 4d8 or 18 necrotic damage, which, you know, that's pretty severe. Hellfire Orb, then, is its other action. This is kind of its big gun, literally a gun, basically. It's a Hellfire Orb once per day. It hurls a magical ball of fire that explodes at a point that it can see within 120 feet of it. Each creature in a 20-foot radius sphere. So this is a 40-foot wide sphere. Centered on that point must make a DC 18 dexterity saving throw. The sphere spreads around corners. A creature takes 35 10d6 fire damage and 35 10d6 necrotic damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. So a huge, like a nuclear bomb, 20d6 damage on a failed save, automatically taking 10d6 damage even if you succeed, unless you are a rogue or a monk and have evasion. And then lastly, the Death Knight has a reaction. It has parry. It adds 6 to its AC against 1 melee attack that would hit it. To do so, the Death Knight must see the attacker and be wielding a melee weapon. And that is the Death Knight. So it's cool. I mean, concept-wise, this is a baller monster. I love the idea of the Death Knight. But unfortunately, I would argue that it is not as cool mechanically as it is sort of made out to be in the lore. I really doubt this thing is a CR17 monster. Matt Colville could tell you certainly that it is not. Great, so let's talk about, I have 3 big problems with the Death Knight, and then we might get into a little bit more specifics as we go on. Maybe we'll add some extra stuff as we discuss it. But here are the big 3 problems that I highlighted on the podcast the other day. So, I would argue that spell casting is a pretty boring feature to give to a monster like this. Obviously, there are some monsters that you really want to kind of play as spellcasters, things like liches, and wizards, and even mummy lords. The idea of them having kind of a bevy of different magical powers is sort of what you would expect. But on a Death Knight, it's kind of the last thing that I want, because they're sort of playing with this idea of it being like an undead paladin. Okay, but a paladin is getting their magic from a god. Then if they've turned into a Death Knight, chances are good that they've broken their oath with their god and they become this thing. So I don't necessarily think that spellcasting is that important to the concept. Oh, hey, what's up, M. Grant and Hunter Fox? Thanks for coming, y'all. Yeah, we're talking Death Knights today, and about how spellcasting is boring. Yeah, it is. It's Soth time. I don't know very much about Lord Soth. In fact, I was going to say I know nothing about Lord Soth, but then I remembered that the Monster Manual wastes a bunch of its word count describing the plot of Dragonlance to me, rather than telling me, like, why Lord Soth is a cool bad guy. They're just like, this is everything about Lord Soth, there you go, this is what happened to him, and about his like, wife. Meaningless. But we're not talking about Lord Soth, we're talking about spell casting, and, yeah, I just don't think it's an integral part of the Death Knight. I don't think it is that meaningful. Plus, a lot of these spell choices, they blow. Magic weapon sucks. Who cares? Don't need it. Elemental weapon, even worse. Get out of here. Some of them, like Dispel Magic, is okay. Banishment is okay. Staggering Smite and Destructive Wave, I think you can make it a case for. I don't hate Hold Person. I don't hate Command. Compel Duel is pretty cool. But a lot of these, my bigger problem isn't even thematic. It's that instead of doing 3 longsword attacks, the Death Knight gets to do Command or Destructive Wave or Banishment. It's an action economy problem. Plus, it's bad design in a way that I think lots of other designers have talked about, where I don't want to have to stop and go, hey, Dank Dungeons, what's up? Compel Duel is rad. I think it's a very, very cool power, but I bet we could bake that into the monster, and we'll talk about that in just a second. I don't want to have to go and crack open another book to find out how does honestly, I don't even know how Destructive Wave works. I've never even heard of Destructive Wave, to tell you the honest truth. So that's kind of where I'm at, right? I feel like there's a lot of cool ideas here, but only about half of them are that interesting to me, and I feel like we could pretty easily decouple them from spellcasting. So my fix to this problem is that we replace the spellcasting power with legendary actions and lair actions that accomplish several of these same goals. Some of them might need to be farmed out into other powers, into actual abilities, and I think Compelled Duel is probably the best candidate for that. Uh-oh, Dank Dungeons is on the wrong account. Uh-oh, I know who you are. What's up, man? No worries. When suddenly a new person comes in, we'll all just act surprised. Great. So, hey, what's up, Alex? Alex Russo. Oh man, I was expecting a different. Yeah, I think you have like 3 aliases, Alex Russo. I think you have like aliases inside of aliases, because I was expecting yet a different name. Wild, you're a man of mystery. So I think a lot of these command, hold person, banishment could be farmed out into either other abilities, or I think specifically into legendary actions. The Death Knight does have an action economy problem if you want to use one on its own, but as I will make a case for in a little bit, you don't want to. But before we get there, we're going to talk about the next problem, and that is Hellfire Orb. Now, this might be controversial, but my contention is that Hellfire Orb, kind of like spellcasting, clashes with the very concept of this monster. I think Hellfire Orb is cool in the sense that it's maybe the most damage I have ever seen. Exactly. Lord of Waterdeep up in here. Precisely. I think it clashes with the concept. It is definitely the most damage I have ever seen on a power. I mean, maybe there are more damaging abilities, but 20d6 damage is pretty hard to argue with. And it's cool in that respect. But beyond that, I don't think that it's actually that relevant to the monster. There's a couple of mechanical problems with it. I hate that it's once per day. I hate how big it is. Like, it's 40 foot wide, which like seems good to kind of catch the whole party, but the chances are good that you're going to be walking into a battle with the Death Knight with other undead. So what this thing is going to do is it's going to nuke any of its lower level undead. Yeah, they might be immune, hopefully, they might be resistant, hopefully immune to the necrotic, but why are you going to dump 10d6 fire damage into your own army? Maybe there's an argument that you shoot it off first, like the party's over here and I'm over here and the Death Knight drops that, but that's assuming that the Death Knight wins initiative with a +0, chances are really, really good that it just doesn't. So that's kind of my problem with it, is that you're probably going to end up nuking your own troops, and it's massive, and it just doesn't make sense. It's not that old of a power. It originates in, I think, 4th edition, and it just I don't need it. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't play to the concept of the Death Knight. Alex Russo in the chat says, I don't understand why Death Knights don't have auras. They're evil undead paladins. I agree. I feel like this is so, like, its big gun is this massive AoE power, which just doesn't mean anything. M. Grant says, or it's an endgame. It realizes it's losing and uses it as cover to retreat. I don't hate that, but again, it's not immune to fire either, right? So it will take that fire damage. If it's losing, it's about to take 10d6 fire damage, because chances are good that the party has gotten to the knight already, right? So it's already in melee contact. And the thing is, it wants to be in melee contact. So sure, you drop this, hopefully you kill, or knock unconscious a couple of people, but there's just a better, easier way to do that, It's a cool idea, but I mean, give this to a Baelor. Like, that's who deserves this, right? This is something that belongs to a demon, not to a Death Knight. So that's my argument with Hellfire Orb. My solution would be to replace it with a similar AoE effect, I think kind of playing into Russo's idea of it being an area of effect, right? Paladins have auras. Why wouldn't the Death Knight have an aura? But what if it, instead of damaging, it deals necrotic damage, right? But what if it heals undead in that aura, right? Here's my thinking. If you're going to be using a Death Knight, this is a CR17 monster, right? You're going to be, and you want it to be kind of like a battlefield general, like leading a bunch of undead, right? Ooh, M. Grant says, Martial Undead is like an aura. I have feelings about Martial Undead, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. If you want to be leading a large group of undead, right, then chances are good that you're probably not using higher level undead. You're probably not using vampires. You're probably not using wraiths. Chances are good, I think, you're using lower level undead, things like maybe a low level mummy or a wight, or probably skeletons and zombies, right? And skeletons and zombies are wildly out of proportion with, you know, the people that are going to be fighting the Death Knight, you know, higher level heroes. So the idea of a power that will bolster and give temporary hit points or regain hit points to lower level undead at the same time that it damages targets, you know, it could absolutely be called like Siphon Life or whatever, something like that. Big AoE still does the same thing, but it doesn't hurt the undead, right? Yeah, it is pretty crap. Grant, we're going to talk about it. That damages other targets, but heals its allies, I think is exactly the kind of power I would like to see on a creature like this. I'm of the contention that the Death Knight should be a battlefield commander, right? It should be someone who is on the front lines. Shadowrunner says, many Death Knights do end up working for fiends with their lesser troops in tow. That's something that I saw in the older lore, and I don't remember if it's in 5e, but I don't really feel like it is that core to the concept, right? Like, you could definitely do that, right? But I don't necessarily think that the Death Knight should assume that just because it sometimes works for fiends, that it should have this just absolutely bananas AoE, right? Ooh, Hunter Fox says, what could be cool is that the aura desecrates the ground, creating semi-permanent locations where the undead heal and enemies take damage. That's actually really cool. It might be hard to mechanize. Hey, what's up, David? Thanks for coming. This is a busy chat today. It might be hard to mechanize for Theater of the Mind, but I think you could pretty easily say that that desecrated aura just does that anyway. Anyone who starts their turn there takes X damage. Any undead that starts their turns there gains X number of temps. You have to be careful about healing, probably. I think temps is probably the way to do that. But yeah, the idea of it persisting, that's pretty cool. Because then you might be able to keep that once per day thing. I don't generally like once per day powers. I prefer recharges because I don't like the idea of thinking about, like, what else did the Death Knight do today? You know, if they fight it in multiple encounters, does it lose that power? But anyway, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about the third problem, and that is that Martial Undead, as M. Grant alluded to, sucks. It's no good. It's a bad power. It's a good idea, and it's to me, it's like the signal for what do they want this monster to do. But here's how the power reads. Unless the Death Knight is incapacitated, it and undead creatures of its choice within 60 feet of it have advantage on saving throws against features that turn undead. Yeah, that's like a good start, but it's sucky. I don't like it. It's bad. It's no good. And all it does is it insulates the Death Knight against, you know, targets against creatures that have powers like that, right? So I just find the notion of, like, I think it's a great start. It's a good place where to kind of begin with. But I don't necessarily think that it does anything, because 90% of the time, if you're in battle with a cleric, advantage is going to help you. But if you've got these lower level undead, they're not going to be very good anyway, and they're just going to get wiped out. So, like, I mean, I keep thinking about the Crawling Claw, which we did a couple of episodes ago. The Crawling Claw has turn immunity. It is just immune to being turned, right? I kind of wonder if there's an interesting version of this, and my solution here is just include more abilities that empower undead. Like, this isn't enough, right? Like, I think in general 5e does a bad job of creating kind of like leader type monsters that, you know, marshal their allies and give extra attacks and stuff like that. 4th edition I think did a better job of this than 5th, but 5th is not doing great. But there could probably even be a version of this where the Death Knight basically creates turn immunity for all of the lesser undead, right? But it itself is not immune to being turned. As long as the Death Knight is there, then the zombies and the skeletons and whatever can't be turned. But the Death Knight is where you have to go. Maybe the Death Knight gets advantage, or the Death Knight just has a high wisdom save, which it already does. right? So like then the difficulty becomes I have to get to the Death Knight and try to turn the Death Knight. If I can turn the Death Knight, then it turns all the rest of them or something like that. Because then it has a vulnerability too, which I really, really love. I think more monsters in 5th edition need to have vulnerabilities. Okay, a bunch of chats. Let me jump into these. Hey, what's up, David? Thanks for coming. It would be hard to mark on the terrain, but it creates tactical movement on the map. That's totally true. Like I think that's an interesting idea. I just don't know how we could do that. I guess you could say it creates a couple of areas. Within yeah, I just feel like in the stats of that would be hard to mechanize. I love the idea. I think we could say that maybe a lesser degree around the Death Knight remains that way. Would there be a way to do it? Great. Shadowrunner says, yeah, Death Knights don't typically get access to the healing spell set. Exactly. M. Grant says, there is a lore issue with healing undead under Eldritch Power in the MM, it says, but no Death Knight can use its magic to heal. Then I am not a rules as written guy. Does it say that, really? Let me grab the MM. Interesting. If a party with a cleric of that level can turn undead, they would destroy those lesser undead. Exactly. M. Grant says this is prime for the leader role. It totally is. I'm going to grab my MM. Because maybe the idea is that, like, it doesn't... Because I don't think it actually is healing. I think you could make an argument that First of all, we can change the lore as much as we want. Secondly, I think you can make an argument that that giving necrotic energy to an undead isn't actually healing it, right? It's healing magic if you're regaining hit points. If you make it temporary hit points, then I think we're fine. I'm going to grab my MM and we're going to check that out, but I'll be back in like 5 seconds. 1 second. 5 seconds, 1 second. You heard me? Okay, here we go. Monster manual. This is nice lively chat. Every once in a while you'll do a big blockbuster monster like this. The Mind Flayer, the Beholder, or the Death Knight, or whatever, and you actually get like a good, vibrant chat, which is lovely to see. Okay, Death Knight. Is it sad that I think that like 6 people is a vibrant chat? Maybe, but you're doing great. It's lovely to have you all here. I'm so grateful. Eldritch Power retains the ability to cast divine spells. Yeah, however, no Death Knight can use its magic to heal. It also attracts and commands lesser undead, although Death Knights that serve powerful fiends might have fiendish followers instead. That is the only reference in here to them serving fiends. Death Knights often use warhorse skeletons and nightmares as mounts. That was actually cool. Something they talk about in 1st edition is that they can like summon a nightmare, which I think is rad. Okay, cool. Into it. So those are my 3 beefs. I would love to brainstorm a couple of other ways. Obviously, I think if we replace Hellfire Orb with Siphon Life, or whatever we call it, right? That would be a good way to improve their sort of leader abilities. But I don't necessarily know what the other ones would be. Yeah, I love all the chats too, Hunter. Thanks for coming, everyone. I don't know what their other like leader type abilities would be for undead. So if you guys want to brainstorm some of that while I start putting the things that we have already talked about, that would be awesome. So let's actually make a list. What do we have to do here? What do we have to do? So tasks. We wanted to create legendary actions. We need to brainstorm some legendary actions. Brainstorm legendary actions inspired by the spell list. We wanted to redesign the Hellfire Orb into a necrotic AoE that gives temps to undead. We wanted to brainstorm a few more ways the Death Knight can marshal undead. Yeah, Shadowrunner has a Death Knight can arise anew. Oh yes, that's one thing I want to talk about. So there's a thing in there which I love. I love this idea of the Death Knight can arise anew even after it's been destroyed. Only when it atones for a life of wickedness, or finds redemption, can it finally escape its undead purgatory and truly perish. So I love that idea that the only way to truly like defeat a Death Knight, again, it's kind of like in a Darth Vader sense, right, to redeem them. Which I think is awesome, and I love the notion of them recurring kind of like a lich, but there's no mechanic for how to do that. I don't necessarily think it needs to be like a mechanic in its stat block, because I doubt it would come up in the context of the story or in the context of a fight, but I feel like a sidebar or something like that could be cool. Yep, sidebar. Immortal until redeemed. David says maybe something similar to a compelled duel or a goat ability. Yep, we have that under one of the spells, but I kind of think that should be a power of the undead or of the Death Knight. Compel duel, rather than making that a legendary action as an ability or as an action. Okay, and then I want to do something with under this. So in 4th edition, they were tied to their weapons. That like the sword of the Death Knight kind of functioned like a Lich's reliquary, you know, or a Mummy Lord's heart. And I really like that idea of wrapping, like packaging those two things together. I like the notion, you'd have to find some way to like play with redemption and the weapon, that it isn't just that their soul is tied to the weapon, and that if you destroy the weapon, they can't be redeemed. But that like, yeah, what if they're like, the Death Knight is linked, the Death Knight is linked to their weapon, the weapon is indestructible until the Death Knight is redeemed, but is also the locus of their regeneration. Right? That like, I would consider looking to the fighter combat master abilities like Commander Strike and Know Your Enemy. Yes, Commander Strike was in my head for sure, because that's straight out of 4th edition, but I don't know Your Enemy. See, I don't know how to know my own enemy. But the idea, right, is that one thing we could design is we could say like, okay, here's an example, you know, great sword or whatever, an example longsword of a Death Knight, and the party can defeat the Death Knight, right, and then sort of Isildur style pick up the sword, and now they have the sword and it's this powerful undead weapon, necrotic weapon they can carry around with them, but it is the locus of the thing that will eventually, you know, bring the Death Knight back, right? As long as the weapon persists, then the Death Knight can keep recurring, but the weapon is indestructible, right? So the only way to, you could like lock the weapon away somewhere where no one could use it, you know. Does it like turn the wielder into the Death Knight? That's kind of interesting. But I like the idea of creating something like that for our Patreon. So if you're not a patron, which I think most of you in the chat, at least those of you chatting are, if you're watching this later on VOD, if you're not a patron, I always like to design a little extra bonus piece of content to put on our Patreon. All these monsters are available there, and I always like to throw in, you know, maybe it's a random table, maybe it's some magic items, maybe it's, you know, some extra lore or something like that, or a different version of the monster that will always hit the Trove on our Patreon, which is the $5 level. Great. So I want to come back to that idea. I also want to grab my my player's handbook to look at these fighter combat master abilities and see if we can kind of pilfer from them a little bit. But great. This is great. We have a lot to do here. I'm gonna grab that really quick. I'm also gonna get some water, and I'll be back. This might take more than 5 seconds, but I will try to be as quick as I can. Hang tight, everybody. Be right there. It's me. I'm back. Okay, so I'm going to look at the fighter here really quick, and then we're going to dive into the actual stat block. The fighter. Commander Strike, I know. Ooh, know your enemy's not here. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so let's go look and see if we can find it online. Online. Know your enemy. 5e fighter. Battle Master. Yeah, this is if you can spend at least 1 minute observing your enemy. Ooh, M. Grant says, I like I think a beefed up destructive wave type explosion upon death, like a death burst. That's cool. Yeah, and then you see the weapon, the helm behind. In my lore, in my homebrew world, it's the armor that's actually more important than the weapon, but I wanted to kind of like stick with the more established lore for this. Know your enemy. If you spend at least 1 minute observing or interacting with another creature outside of combat, you can learn certain information about its capabilities compared to your own. The DM tells you if the creature is your equal, superior, or inferior in regard to 2 of the following characteristics: strength, dex, con, armor class, current hit points, total class levels, if any, fighter class levels, if any. That's pretty specific. Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, the problem with know your enemy is that like the dungeon master knows that stuff, right? And I think it's reasonable to intuit it. That's an information economy issue. All right, we're gonna jump over here to Death Knight. So this is TetraCube. This is a website that I use to do all of my stat blocks. They do not pay me to advertise for them, but I just think they are a good website, and you should check them out. Please support them on Ko-fi if you do. Ko-fi? I never know how to say it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to kill spell casting. I find it to be dismal. We're also going to make this a legendary creature. The Death Knight, not the Death Dog. That's what I used for the template. Okay, so let's see. I like the idea of how do you guys feel about parry? Because I kind of think parry is dumb in this context. I think parry is a great reaction if the target if the monster is lower level. But at 17th level, most people are going to be attacking the Death Knight multiple times. If it could add AC 6 to its AC for a turn, okay, that's more interesting, right? But against one hit, is that really that valuable? I guess it's good against like a rogue or to like block a crit, but a crit is almost always a hit, right? On an attack, a crit is always a hit on an attack roll. So regardless of what your armor class is, that doesn't help you. You know what I mean? So I kind of think we should get rid of parry because it's messy, and I don't think it's yeah, I don't think it's it's not that valuable of a power, and it's kind of messy if we're gonna also add legendary action. So let's kill parry. Ooh, I love Orcus's ability to create undead and animate dead might be cool. Ooh, animate dead is a pretty good legendary action. You know, I don't hate that. So I liked command. What do we have here for spells? I just deleted the list, of course. Command I liked. Compelled duel, searing smite, hold person, magic weapon, dispel magic, banishment, destructive wave. So let's do command as a legendary action. Command. Let me look up. Oop, sorry everybody. Oh, actually I have the book right here. Actually, you know what? We'll do this. Command 5e. Yeah, the Death Knight speaks a one-word command to a creature it can see within range. The target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or follow the command on its next turn. Now, the actual command spell has a lot more, qualifications. The spell has no effect if the target is undead, if it doesn't understand your language, or if your command is directly harmful to it. But I kind of think DC, what did we determine it was? DC 18. I kind of think that's boss. I'm just saying, like, yeah, if the Death Knight tells you to fall on your sword, you do it, you know? I kind of think that's cool. You don't die, you just take sword damage, right? But, like, for a legendary action, you don't really want the full text of the spell. You could just say, cast the spell command, but that has our same problem of, like, sending somebody running off into the, I cannot talk, player's handbook. Do you guys think compelled duel Necrotic damage is already on the longsword attack, actually. It's a little confused because of the two-handed thing, which I'm going to remove that. I hate that. It's got a shield. Why do we care? But it already has 48 necrotic damage in the melee attack. Yep. So it's like, why would I want to smite on top of that? That seems very strange. So do we think that the compelled duel is a legendary action? What do y'all think? It still says Death Dog down there, the Death Knight. This just says the Death. Lots of typos today. The Death Knight speaks a one word. Do we think that compelled duel is an ability? I kind of think, because I like the idea of saying before someone's turn, right, the Death Knight can compel them to attack. You have to attack me. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of cool. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do compel. Are we putting compelled duel so the DK can engage in melee without a ranged attack? That's true. I kind of think they shouldn't have a ranged attack, if I'm honest. They're such a melee character, you know? Like, think about, like, Darth Vader, right? Like, Vader or the Nazgul. Like, the idea of the Nazgul, like, shooting lasers just feels weird to me. So I'm going to put compel here. I'm going to look up the compelled duel spell. But I don't know. What do you guys think for a like ranged attack? Gee, what podcast are you referring to there, M. Grant? I can't think of what podcast that could possibly be. Compelled duel. I like it as a legendary action. I like them interrupting the players', you know, plans with a cool compelled duel 5e. So similarly, I'm just going to borrow some of the text from compelled duel in a more simplified way. The Death Knight forces the Death Knight. Let's see. Forces one creature within. Yeah, Alex Russo is right there with it. They don't need ranged attacks, they have minions. Ooh, that's cool, because might I suggest that Death Knight has a legendary action where zombie hands come out of the ground and half speed immobilize a target. That way they can get into melee. That's cool. Okay. Forces one creature within range to make, or within 120 feet. Well, it's going to be closer than that, I think. 60 feet? To make a DC 18 Wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the creature is drawn to you. The creature has disadvantage on attack rolls or attack rolls against creatures other than you, and must make a wisdom saving throw each time it attempts to move to a space that is more than 30 feet away from the Death Knight. See, this is kind of complicated. Do we think it's better if they're charmed and they're just forced to go and attack it? 30 feet away from the Death Knight. I like that it's a 60-foot range, right? It's not 30 feet, which is how... so it's like it compels you, and then you have to move closer to it, right? The spell ends if you attack any other creature. I think we just leave it at that, right? Like... on a failed save, the creature has disadvantage on attack rolls against other creatures other than the Death Knight, and must make... I kind of think it's better if they're charmed, right? The creature, on a failed save, the creature is charmed or be charmed. Or be charmed by the Death Knight. A charmed creature must spend their turn We'll put it within 30 feet then. Must spend their action making a melee attack roll against the Death Knight. Must spend their turn moving. Ooh, what if it's like a charmed creature? While charmed, yeah, let's do this. While charmed, the creature has disadvantage on saving throws, advantage on attack rolls against creatures other than the Death Knight, and cannot willingly move more than 30 feet away. Cannot willingly move more than 30 feet away. The charm ends when the target makes a melee attack roll against the Death Knight. So the idea here is that, let's go legendary action, compel. There you go. The Death Knight forces one creature within 30 feet to make a DC 18 Wisdom saving throw, be charmed by the Death Knight. While charmed, the creature has disadvantage on attack rolls against creatures other than the Death Knight and cannot willingly move more than 30 feet away. So it's kind of the opposite of frightened, right? It's like compelled. The charm ends when the target makes a melee attack roll against the Death Knight. So the notion is that like you can end it if you swing that blade. If you get in there and you make an attack. I really like conditions that end when you take actions rather than when you make a saving throw, right? Because that's going to change your tactics a lot. Oh boy, a bunch of chats. Okay. Yeah, this dude does want to fight you toe to toe. What if another legendary action was like prevent interference, where it would, if they compel a duel, no one but that person can fight them? Yeah, that'd be pretty hard to mechanize. Compel 1v1 duel. Now I'm getting silly. I prefer compel. Charm is problematic for me and a lot of my players as well. Yeah, charm I think in this case is just the like it's the mechanical term for it. Ooh, you do say though. Also, charm makes you friendly by the wording of the spell charm. Like charm person, because like if it's just a spell, if it's the condition charmed, then yes, then we should change it. Yeah, I don't mean charmed in the sense that you are actually charmed, but like what's the difference between being compelled and being charmed from a problematic standpoint? You know what I mean? Like that seems very similar to me. But if charmed mechanically. Oh, huh, yeah, it says the charmed creature can't attack the charmer. Okay, yeah, we do need to change it. So let's change it to compelled. Good note, M. Grant, good note. Be compelled for the Death Knight. While compelled, just disadvantage on attack rolls against creatures other than the Death Knight. It cannot willingly move more than 30 feet away. The compulsion, I guess? Compulsion ends when the target makes a melee attack roll against the Death Knight. Cool, I like that. I'm a big fan of again, as I said, do you think that's 2 actions? I think it's like drawing multiple people in per round. I think that's kind of cool. Okay. And then somebody had I like the idea of like a raising the dead power. Then that one could cost 3 actions. I'm thinking of the Night King, right, in Game of Thrones, like that awesome moment where he pulls up all of the dead. Yeah, that's so cool. That show really fell off a cliff, but there's some cool moments in that show. There's some cool moments. Okay, let's see. So, M. Grant, you had said Orcus has a similar thing, yeah? Let's look up Orcus 5e to get some language. Again, good designers steal language from other powers that's already been play tested and stuff. Creeping Death. Orcus chooses a point on the ground that he can see within 100 feet tall and within a 10-foot radius. Oh, that's weird. Is this mechanically correct? Chooses a point on the ground that he can see within 100 feet tall and with a 10-foot radius. Right, that's got to be a typo. Let me look somewhere else. Orcus on D&D Beyond. Sorry if this slows down the stream a little bit, y'all. Oh yeah, I hear you, M. Grant. Yeah, their charm has difficulty for some tables. I think that's reasonable. I've never had a problem with it. I think charm is a lot about what you like, how you use it. But I wouldn't fault anybody for removing it from their table for sure. Orcus. Orcus. Yeah, there was a typo in the previous one I was looking at. Orcus chooses a point on the ground that he can see within 100 feet of him. A cylinder of swirling necrotic energy 60 feet tall and with a 10-foot radius rises from that point and lasts until the end of Orcus's next turn. Creatures in the area are vulnerable to necrotic. Nah, that's okay. I kind of want a Raising the Dead thing. Oh, is that from Out of the Abyss? Because this is Orcus from I think it's Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. That might be different. Yeah, Orcus causes. I see. It's a lair action. Orcus causes up to 6 corpses within the lair to rise as skeletons, zombies, or ghouls. These undead obey his telepathic commands, which can reach anywhere in his lair. Okay. So as a rise, costs 3 actions. All dead creatures, all corpses, up to 6 corpses. The Death Knight causes. The Death Knight causes up to what? 4 corpses within 120 feet to rise as skeletons, zombies, or ghouls. Those are still skeletons or zombies. These undead obey the Death Knight's commands. It doesn't have telepathy, right? Yeah. Obey the Death Knight's commands. Yeah. See, I kind of think the idea of an aura that drives you towards death. Like, I like the idea of an aura that makes you fail death saving throws. Right? Let's do like Aura of Undeath as a thing. Because then I think that combos really well with Rise. Let's do Arise. Oh, shoot. Nope. Arise. Add legendary action and remove Rise. Okay. That's cool. So we have Command, Compel, and Arise. I want to do an Aura like Alex was talking about. Okay, so then who would win, Anti-Paladin or Death Knight? I mean, I think the Death Knight's got to win. It depends on the level of the Anti-Paladin, but I think it's got to be the Death Knight. Okay, so let's do Aura of Undeath. This is how we're gonna get our martial undead power in here. Okay, so living creatures that begin their turn within unconscious creatures, all creatures within all creatures. Here, an aura of undeath surrounds the Death Knight. What if it's, yeah, 15-foot radius? 15-foot radius aura of undeath surrounds the Death Knight. Now, gosh, an aura of undeath. Does Orcus actually have auras? He's got his wand, but no, like, aura. Master of Undeath. To conjure undead creatures whose combined average hit points don't exceed 500. Ooh, that's pretty brutal. How do you do auras in 5e? Like, what's a monster with an aura? Like, there were mechanics for it in 4e, but like, looking around here. Nightwalker has one. Nightwalker. I'm just trying to find like text that I can base this on. Nightwalker 5e. Oh, this isn't there. Sorry, this is stimulating television, I know. I just don't know how to how do you... In 4th edition, there was particular language that you used around auras, where I feel like that's not like standardized in 5e, which is another thing I don't like about 5e. Annihilating Aura. It just says any creature that starts its turn within. Okay. Any creature that starts its turn within 30 feet of the Death Knight automatically... Why is there a period there? Oh. Automatically fails all death saving throws made within 30 feet of the Death Knight automatically fail. So the idea is you got to drag them away, right? That if they're just kind of standing there, great. So I want this to be both the thing that grants like a turn immunity, all other undead. In addition, all other undead within 30 feet of the Death Knight are immune to any effect that would turn all undead creatures within 30 feet. Hey, what's up, Hermley? How you doing? Whoa, Hermley. What's going on? Lovely to see you, my friend. Immune to any effect that... are immune to any effect that would that turns undead, that turns undead. Yeah, there we go. Add ability. We're going to kill Martial Undead. Any death saving throw made within 30 feet of the Death Knight automatically. Any death saving throw, you should do singular rather than plural. Any death saving throw made within 30 feet automatically fails. In addition, that is dangerous. But you're 17th level. Herm, that's the thinking, right? Good to see you, man. Good to see you. It's a big chat today. People like the Death Knight, I guess. They do not say that. I'm not a German. Although I actually do have quite a bit of German ancestry, but I don't really consider myself particularly German. Okay, so there's that. Now I want to redesign Martial Undead. I like it. Maybe it's a bonus action, right? Like as a bonus action, the Death Knight can choose one of the following 3 options. Yeah, I like that idea. I think they gotta fail. I think it's gotta be a failure. You're 17th level, right? It's good dangerous, yeah. You're 17th level. You've got all kinds. You've got endless amounts of things you can do. I'm not here to take it easy on you. You know, you've got to be unconscious first of all, right? You've got to be within 30 feet of the Death Knight, and then just because it fails doesn't mean you're gonna die, right? And what's nice is that like you don't have to roll, so you can't get a natural 1, right? They just automatically fail. So I'm sticking with auto fail. I think disadvantage could work too, but I like the severity of it. Just nope, you die. You don't even die. You just it slides you closer to death. Magic resistance. Now I want to do Martial Undead. How do I want to do it? I designed a monster the other day that I thought had a really interesting mechanic. This is really probably going to slow down the video. I apologize, but it was on my Roll20, so I got to go open up Roll20 to look at it. So sorry. This is going to make the stream crawl for just a second. But I want to pull this up because it had a really cool mechanic that I liked. and I might want to port this over. It was basically like a commander, you know, it was a commander of a mercenary company, but they have a cool ability where they can choose one of a number of different powers, and I like the idea of the Death Knight having that kind of control. Ooh, get some HP every time the Death Knight failed, and ooh, that's cool, David. I like it's like drinking their death. Ooh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna be really quick. Sorry, I know this is dragging down the video of the stream. So sorry, everybody. This is just gonna take a second. Okay. Yeah, this was the text. Okay. Sorry, everybody, I'm back. So I'm gonna do Martial Undead. I'm just gonna pop this in, and then I'll get in there and I'll mess with it. But I want to go here into Aura of Undeath. Any death saving throw made within 30 feet of the Death Knight automatically fails. When a creature within the aura fails their death saving throw, the Death Knight regains 5 hit points. Yum, 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 yum. I love that. Very nice. Death Drinker. Rename this creature. Yes, it raises your corpse as part of its legendary action, I think. But yeah. And again, you have to die. Failing death saving throw is not death, right? It's just a step towards death. Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Death Drinker. Okay, so the way that this worked before, they were called Ironward Mercenaries, but these are going to be each undead creature within 100 feet. They can hear the Legionnaire, can choose one of the following: gain 5 temporary hit points, disengage with half their speed, or make a melee basic attack. That's obviously not proper language, but I think it's going to be something along those lines. As a bonus action, the Death Knight, as a bonus action, the Death Knight can spend a bonus action to allow. The Death Knight can spend a bonus action to allow one creature within one undead creature. How does it currently word? One undead creature. How is it currently worded? Is it like allied undead? Oh, sure. Yeah, to allow one undead creature of its choice. Well, to allow one undead creature, that's fine. To choose one of the following. To gain 5 temporary hit points. To disengage and move half their speed. Or make a melee attack against an enemy. In range. Against one target in range. Yeah, I like that. Just a nice, like, meat and potatoes kind of I'm a commander type power, right? Each bonus action, they're kind of moving their troops around a little bit. They're getting some work done, you know. I think that's the kind of thing where they're getting some good hours in. That's the kind of thing I think we're missing. Okay, great. We're kind of doing this piecemeal here, but I feel like we've done the Death Knight. We've done the spell casting. We haven't done Hellfire Orb yet. We're going to do that next. We've done Martial Undead. I almost want one more Undead power, but I think between Aura of Undeath, Martial Undead, and then the new Hellfire Orb thing we're going to do, I think that's fine. Oh, we want to do a Death Burst, right? Yeah, I like that. Death Burst. When the Death Knight dies, any creature that dies in the aura also gains its... Ooh, you could do that. It's already got the ability to give them 5 temporary hit points. When the Death Knight dies, it explodes in a burst of necrotic energy. Each creature within 30 feet of it must make a DC I want this to be a con save. DC 18 Constitution saving throw. Constitution saving throw. Taking 8d8. Like double the damage you'd get from a sword. Necrotic damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. You'd beef which part up? The Death Burst? That's not enough, you don't think? How much do you think it should be? Let's put that under add ability. Oh, you're saying that, like, if it kills somebody... I see what you're saying. It's kind of interesting. When a creature within the aura fails a death saving throw, Death Knight regains 5 hit points. Yeah, fuck it. How often is Herm here? You know, we gotta celebrate. When a creature within the aura dies, the Death Knight regains 30 hit points. I'm gonna say 25 hit points. I feel like that's a lot. 30 hit points is a lot. I guess maybe it's not a lot at this level. Let's do 10 and 30. How's that? There's a nice symmetry there. Okay. How often is Herm here with us, everybody? We gotta celebrate. Ooh, it's minions as healing. Oh, that's actually really interesting. Okay, let's do this. I don't think it should get hit points back when the undead die. When a living creature... I think that's got to be a stipulation, because otherwise I think that's too powerful. I think you could do it if you brought down the amount of damage. Yeah. This is looking juicy. This is looking like succulent. A delicious looking monster. I love it. Okay. Then let's go to the Hellfire Orb. So what do we want to call this? Siphon Life? Because we liked that. I liked Hunter's idea of drains the life force. Con save. 5d6 thunder and 5d6 necrotic. That's cool. That's dumb because then their 5th level spell as written is only oh, do you think M. Grant, when it dies it's both, that it's thunder and necrotic? That's kind of cool. They sort of do that with the Nazgul, right? And yeah, that's kind of neat. Taking 5d6 live Dyson, 5d6 necrotic, 5d6 thunder, 5d6 thunder, and 5d6 necrotic. Taking 5d6. The idea that it's a huge explosion and 5d6 necrotic on a failed save or half as much on a successful one. I kind of think that's cool. Cool. And then put that as an ability. I like that better. Life Drain, Life Siphon. I'm gonna do Siphon Life for now, unless somebody's got a more metal name. I'm gonna do Life Dyson. I don't know how to word this. The Death Knight Cypher drains the life force of all living creatures within. Do we do the aura? Do we do 30 feet out? Within 30 feet? I think that's fine. Within 30 feet. All living creatures within the aura must succeed on a DC 18 Constitution saving throw, or take a living creature takes. Now, how much damage is this? I don't think that it should be. It definitely shouldn't be as much. Do we do 35, 10d6 necrotic damage? on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. This is interesting. What if in addition the Death Knight can grant temporary hit points equal to the amount of damage Nullify Life. I love Nullify. Absolutely. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're alive. Yeah, that's Nullify Life is pretty metal. Good, David. Good. Nullify. Rejected. Can grant temporary hit points equal to the amount of necrotic damage dealt. Can grant temporary hit points equal to the amount of necrotic damage dealt to itself or to any undead creature it chooses inside the aura. It can distribute. Yeah. Nullify. Incredible. I liked your joke, Herm, about Life Dyson, but I can't make a reference to a branded vacuum cleaner. Can grant temporary hit points equal to the amount of necrotic damage dealt to itself or to any undead creature it chooses inside the aura, distributing the hit points. To any undead creature inside the aura, distributing the hit points as it chooses. Yeah. That's how we'll do it. So it's like, okay, distributing the hit points as it chooses. So that's why it's once per day, because it's a huge pain in the ass for bookkeeping, right? But I think it's a cool power. So the idea here, right, is that the Death Knight drains the life force of all living creatures within 30 feet. All living creatures within the aura must succeed on a DC 18 Constitution saving throw. A living creature takes 35 10d6 necrotic damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. In your game, I'm sure it could be. In addition, the Death Knight can grant temporary hit points equal to the amount of necrotic damage dealt to itself or by any undead creature. Or any undead creature in the aura, distributing the hit points as it chooses. So, like, right, if you do this and a bunch of people fail, right, let's say 3 characters fail and they all take 35. Now the Death Knight has 35, has what, like, what is that? Maybe that's silly. Let's do half, because I think, like, if it's temps, yeah, that's so much. Can grant temporary hit points equal to half the amount of damage, to half the amount of necrotic damage dealt to itself or to any undead creature in the aura. Oh, I see. Can grant temporary hit points to itself or any undead creature in the aura equal to the amount, to half the amount of necrotic damage dealt, distributing the hit points as it chooses. There, that makes more grammatical sense, I think. This is kind of a complicated idea. But you understand what I'm going for, right? That it's like, if I deal 70 damage, 2 people fail to save, right? Then I have 70 hit points I can spread out amongst my undead followers. You know, I can take 30 of it, and I can give out 40, 10 to each of the remaining undead. In addition, the Death Knight can grant temporary hit points equal to the amount of necrotic damage dealt to itself or to any... Oh, I see. That's still weird. Okay. In addition, the Death Knight can grant temporary hit points to itself or to any... God damn it. Oh, it didn't update. That's why. Yeah, add action and then update that block. There we go. In addition, the Death Knight can grant temporary hit points to itself or to any undead creature in the aura equal to half the amount of necrotic damage dealt, distributing the hit points as it chooses. Yeah, that's exactly right, Hermley. It spreads the temp hit point around. This definitely feels like an undead general. That's exactly what I wanted. I think we gotta leave the actual Death Knight there because, like, this is so stupid, but I love how even the stat block is. Tetracube isn't very good at making, like, actually, there's a lot you can do, right? Because you can, like, move things around like this, but I'm like, weirdly always compelled to try to make the stat block as even as possible, and I think this is a very nice version of it. Okay, I'm gonna leave that there. I think that's great. I'm into it. Okay, so that's the Death Knight. There's one last thing I want to do on the stream. Thank you everybody for coming. Look at all these people. This is so lovely. I'm so happy to have all these people here. There's one more thing I want to do on the stream, and I would love your help in doing it. I guess it's like two things, kind of, but they're related. So I want to do a sidebar for our patrons about the Death Knight and its kind of regeneration, about its regeneration power, right? How does the sword work? All that stuff. So we talked about this a little bit, right? That like the way it's written in the book is that Shadowrunner pulled this out for us, but I'm going to grab it so I can get the wording specific. The Death Knight. The Death Knight. The Death Knight. Hey, what's up, Nuker Wolf? Yeah, you've been always like squeaking in right at the very end. That's okay. It's always great to have you. So it says, and I love this flavor, a Death Knight can arise anew even after it has been destroyed. Only when it atones for a life of wickedness or finds redemption can it finally escape its undead purgatory and truly perish. Right? Yeah, it's Wolf and Fox, everybody's favorite. So I love that idea. I don't think it needs to be baked into the stat block, because in the stat block, it's unlikely to come up in a combat. But I like the idea that that's maybe a sidebar we can put in our version of it, and that we can talk. But I want to talk about the kind of the specifics of how that would work. So we discussed the idea of the Death Knight being linked to their weapon. It's something they talk about in 4th edition. I want to play with this idea that the weapon is indestructible until the Death Knight is redeemed, but it's also the locus of their regeneration. So it's kind of like the Ring and Lord of the Rings or whatever. Like I like the idea. I like the idea that it ties into that, like, you're tempted by the sword. Like if you defeat a Death Knight, right, and then the sword is left, right, that you are tempted to pick it up. But the question is that, while you have it, that's where the Death Knight is going to respawn. So it's maybe even a good idea for these high-level adventurers to pick it up, but, how does that work? So it would need some kind of a name, a cursed sword. I mean, we could do like a thing where this is an example of one, right? A cursed sword. High level. Why is it so big? What font size is this? Okay. High level magical. Yeah, Wolf and Fox. High level magical or high level artifact. All kinds of cool powers. So if y'all wouldn't mind brainstorming a few cool powers for like an example sword. What kinds of cool undead stuff, like necrotic stuff, could the sword do? In addition to dealing additional necrotic damage or being whatever, right? Maybe if the players use the weapon to kill what the Death Knight was meant to kill originally, then the Death Knight will be redeemed. Could be. I think I'd like the idea better that the Death Knight has to atone, right? Because otherwise, it's just then the heroes are just like kicking it down the road, right? High level artifact, all kinds of cool powers on its own, should be tempting for a character. That's what I'm thinking, Hunter Fox, is does the person who picks it up become possessed by the Death Knight, or do they just become their own Death Knight? I like the idea that they become possessed by it, because if it's about redeeming the Death Knight, then it has to be the same intelligence, right? Ooh, I like the idea that it awakens as a sentient sword that slowly takes them over. Yeah, okay, cool. So there are stages. There's like a dormant stage, where the weapon is powerful but unintelligent. I love that, M. Grant. That's awesome. Unintelligent. Then the sword awakens and exhibits the Death Knight's personality. Then the death... Ooh, I love that when you die. That's cool. Exhibits the Death Knight's personality. Then the sword begins to kill you, maybe granting levels of exhaustion. Ooh, that's interesting. M. Grant says, careful with curse at that level. Remove curse is not rare. When you die, the Death Knight animates your corpse. I mean, I kind of want to be even more operatic than that, right? Like a death burst and rising from the ashes comes the Death Knight. Hermley, you're a genius. But I agree, everyone here is a genius. That's very cool. I love that. Yeah, that's a really cool progression. A dormant stage where the weapon is powerful but unintelligent, then the sword awakens and exhibits the Death Knight's personality, then the sword begins to kill you, granting levels of exhaustion, and when you die, the Death Knight animates your corpse. Ooh, M. Grant is a great question. Why would the Death Knight want to atone? I think that's a narrative thing, right? I think that's something you'd have to... I think it would depend Death Knight to Death Knight, right? I don't want to make a determination about the narrative that you're using the Death Knight around. I kind of think it's cool if they... Because in my world, I have a culture of undead where the Death Knights are seen as a good thing. That like there's a whole nation called Thanatos where Undeath is just like an accepted part of life. In fact, it's like revered. And so they have Death Knights in their society, but they don't seek to atone. They're just happy with their choices, right? I think it's got to be tied to the individual thing. So it probably is worth saying that, like, so yeah, let's do a different one for redemption. So redemption. Because yeah, I don't want to put like this is what has to be done, but you can put some suggestions like like redemption. Why does the Death Knight want to atone? Are they racked with guilt? How does a Death Knight atone? Ooh, death saves a disadvantage when you're attuned to the sword? Absolutely, yes. I love that. Death saves with disadvantage while attuned. Love that. That's always been my problem, but in my campaign, a fallen hero became a Death Knight to continue a fight from a mistake he made, only to be redeemed when the mistake was fixed. Yeah, that's cool. I love that. How does Death Knight atone? Do they right a particular wrong they created? Do they sacrifice themselves to save an innocent? I love the idea, like, do they apologize? That, like, you give examples of things. Like, I love the idea of a Death Knight who has, like, done all this horror and all this terror, and that, like, you can't fix it, right? Or someone who becomes a Death Knight based on something really petty and small, and then all they need to do is apologize, and their pride, like, refuses to let them do it. Like, you want some that are, like, right or wrong. Do they turn on their, dark master, whether a lich or a demon lord, like classic Vader stuff, right? Did they kill Palpatine? But I love the idea of there being some that are simpler and more personal, right? Like, do you apologize? Do you make this small thing right again? And that all of this horror and terror has been bent out of shape based on this one simple thing. Hey, y'all, I think that's the Death Knight. I could be wrong, but I think we did it. Nice work, everybody. Let's go over what we did do and how our Death Knight is different from the Death Knight as printed here. So let's look at it. We've got our Death Knight kept all of the base stats, hit points, armor class, all that stuff. We added an aura of Undeath. Any death saving throw made within 30 feet of the Death Knight automatically fails. When a creature within the aura fails a death saving throw, the Death Knight regains 10 hit points. When a living creature within the aura dies, the Death Knight regains 30 hit points. Big shout out to a couple people came in on that one. Herm was in there, and I think David also had the idea of the regaining hit points in the first place. In addition, all other undead creatures within 30 feet of the Death Knight are immune to any effect that turns undead. Great. Death Burst. When the Death Knight dies, it explodes. This idea was M. Grant's. The Death Knight dies, it explodes in a burst of necrotic energy. Each creature within 30 feet of it must make a DC 18 Constitution saving throw, taking 17 5d6 thunder and 17 5d6 necrotic damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. Still got magic resistance. We redesigned Martial Undead. The Death Knight can spend a bonus action to allow one undead creature to choose one of the following: to gain 5 temporary hit points, to disengage and move half their speed, or make a melee attack against one target in range. Let me change this to their speed. Move half their speed. Make a melee attack against one target in range. Okay, abilities. Awesome. And then we added Nullified Life once per day. It drains the life force of all living creatures within 30 feet. All living creatures within the aura must succeed on a DC 18 Constitution saving throw. A living creature takes 35 10d6 necrotic damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. In addition, the Death Knight can grant temporary hit points to itself or to any undead creature in the aura or inside the aura. Any undead creature in... This is a very vexing one. Any undead creature inside the aura. Oh boy, okay, hold on. In addition, the Death Knight can grant temporary hit points to itself or to any undead creature inside the aura equal to half the amount of necrotic damage dealt, distributing the hit points as it chooses. Yeah, okay, that's fine. It's a little weird and wordy, but I think it's clear. Legendary actions. Command. The Death Knight speaks a one-word command to a creature it can see within range. The target must succeed on a DC 18 Wisdom saving throw or follow the command on its next turn. Compel, thanks to M. Grant for the language on this, forces one creature within 30 feet to make a DC 18 Wisdom saving throw or be compelled by the Death Knight. While compelled, the creature has disadvantage on attack rolls against creatures other than the Death Knight and cannot willingly move more than 30 feet away. The compulsion ends when the target makes a melee attack roll against the Death Knight. And then Arise. Costs 3 actions. The Death Knight causes up to 4 corpses within 120 feet to rise as skeletons or zombies. These undead obey the Death Knight's commands. Great. And we also talked about the idea of the sword and the redemption of the Death Knight, how they can be reborn every X number of years when they kind of are, once again, the sword is picked up and wielded by someone else, preferably a player character. Great, that is the end of our stream today, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out and for helping us. We had a huge chat today. Let me do thanks to everybody. Thanks to M. Grant for Nuker Wolf showing up there at the end. Hunter Fox, Hermley was lovely to see. David popping in there. Shadow on our way back at the beginning. So lovely to have you all. I just need to do more streams with these big blockbuster monsters, I guess, to get some more eyeballs in here. Thank you so much for coming. If you like this stream, check out the podcast if you're not listening to it already. We have another one coming out tomorrow for patrons and on Sunday for the general public. And that is going to be another Demons episode. We have 4 more Demons this week. I think we are doing, let's see if I can remember them all. The Hezrau, the Glabrezu, the Yoklal, and the Nalfeshni, I think, are this week. So there's a lot more Demons to do. But thank you so much for, hey, thanks for coming back, Shadow. Lovely to see you. Thanks, everyone, for coming out. If you liked this stream, please make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Make sure that you have clicked the little bell to get notified. Go ahead and like the video, I feel like. Yeah, definitely Arise is what I was thinking of, was Matt Colville, definitely. Throw the video a like if you haven't already. That helps a lot with the algorithm. If you want to see more monsters like this, you can check out our Patreon. There's a link below in the description, and there are all kinds of monsters, basically A through Death Knight, we have on our Trove, on our Monsters Manual, which is a massive collection, not only of redesigned monsters from 5th edition, but over 100 unique new monsters that I have made for the Daily Bestiary, which was a thing we ran last year. Yeah, go ahead and check those out. Please join our Patreon if you want to get access to all of these monsters and early episodes and all kinds of other content. There's a Twitter you can follow me on. There's a on Twitter, I'm on Discord, I'm all over the place. I've talked enough. Thank you so much for coming. We will be back, I think, on Saturday to do some CFD streaming, though it won't be here. It'll be over on Twitch. There'll be links everywhere if you follow me on any of my social media. But thank you so much for coming and hanging out. I appreciate those extra likes, y'all. And I will talk to y'all hopefully on Saturday. As always, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming, and happy adventuring.